Hello, it's Dawn Michelle and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing an enchanted spread, which is a spread that I have created based on the work within this book, The Enchanted Life. Now, I have been asked a couple of different times because I've shown various or talked about various times where I have used a book, a nonfiction book, to inspire a spread. So today I thought I would share with you how I go about doing that, and we're just going to happen to be using the Enchanted Life book, doing the Enchanted spread, and I have here the John Bauer Tarot and the Into the Lonely Woods Oracle that we'll be working with today. So I wanted to just kind of break down the process a little bit and show you how I go about and what I decide to use when I'm creating a spread based on something that I am currently reading or something that I have read. So let's go ahead and shift these out of the way for the moment, just so we can have some room to look through the book. So The Enchanted Life is by Sharon Blackie, and I do believe, I don't remember if this was her first or second book. It's from 2018. This edition is 2021. She does have another book called If Women Rose Rooted, and that was the first book of hers that I read, which I absolutely loved. I wish I had read that one along with this one when my children were little, because I think it would have been really helpful. But it's never too late to learn and improve, so I am currently reading this one throughout the month of July, as I am doing a lot of kind of foresty, fae, exploring different ideas and different realms and looking at how I can bring some of that enchantment into my everyday life. As always, I'll have a link for this book and the decks that I'm working with today in the description box below for you. So one of the things that I like to do when I am reading a book is occasionally, if I'm working with a book like this one, that is a nonfiction book and is geared toward teaching me something or helping me to cultivate a new idea or a new understanding about something, I like to kind of mark places where I feel like that might make an interesting tarot prompt, something that I could use the cards to help me explore that thought or that topic or that idea in more detail. You can also kind of scan the table of contents. This actually works great with just about any nonfiction book. Scan the table of contents and you can actually use these to create tarot spreads as well. And sometimes I do that prior to starting a book. So if I didn't do it with this particular one, but if I were to do it with this one, I would pick up this book and prior to diving into reading it, I would create a tarot spread based on the main title headings. If I really, really wanted to, I could break this down into a really large spread based on the subtitles as well. But if I wanted to do a basic 4-card spread, kind of giving me an idea of maybe something to keep in mind as I'm reading through this book, I could do a 4-card tarot spread that says why enchantment and why now. So I could translate that into a position that is maybe something like, why am I seeking more enchantment in my everyday life? So then we have what is enchantment. So I could maybe translate that into a spread position that is maybe asking, what does enchantment mean to me personally? Then we have the magic of every day. I could translate that into a spread position as in, how can I incorporate more magic into my everyday? And we have the enchanted life. So that could become a spread position where we're looking at how I can bring more enchantment into my life overall. So maybe that might be a good oracle card position. Maybe I might do these 3 as a tarot card and this last one as an oracle. And that's just a great way to kind of start working with a nonfiction book using your tarot. And sometimes I will do that based on the table of contents. I'll have kind of like an intro tarot reading. You can kind of think of that as like maybe, like a month ahead, right? It's the book ahead. It's what the book is going to be offering me and maybe what I might want to keep in mind as I'm reading this book. Now, I also sometimes will do the exact same spread again once I've finished the book and kind of look at what has changed, what has grown, how has my understanding of the contents of this material changed over the course of the reading. So I can use the reading of the actual book. So I can use the reading of my tarot cards at the start of the journey to create tarot spreads, then I can also use that same tarot spread to create a reading at the end of the book as well. So another thing that I will do is sometimes as I'm going through this book and as I finish each section, occasionally what I will do is create a tarot spread based on the subtitles of each section. So let me just show you that one real quick, and then I'll show you how I create a more tailored spread based on particular things that I've picked out in the book. So let's just put this over here for right now. And I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I might do a 4-card reading based on these 4 subtitles from What is Enchantment. So perhaps after I finish reading that section, I might want to go ahead and pull some cards to see where I might be able to find some more deeper meanings or deeper layers within what I have read. So I would pull 4 cards, and actually I'm going to do, based on these prompts, I'm going to do 3 cards, one for to inhabit the living world. So this 9 of Wands, this is telling me how I can inhabit the living world. So we have a card position for the wonderment. So we have our Empress here, telling me that this is where I need to focus on some wonderment in my life. And then we have position 3, which is at home in our skin. And we have our 6 of Wands, maybe telling me how I can be more at home in my body. Again, we're viewing this through the lens of enchantment because that is the context of the book that we're working with. Now we do have this 4th section, which is the mythic imagination. And so for this particular one, I think an oracle card to kind of sum that up might actually work really well. So I'm going to pull from the Lonely Woods. So where can we apply that mythic imagination? We get ebbs and flows. So maybe allowing that to kind of come and go as it feels natural to us. Again, I could jump into the guidebook and see, you know, what the message directly is from Lucy Cavendish, who's the deck writer for this particular book, or this particular deck, and I could see what she has to say about this idea of ebbs and flows and how that might tie into that position of the mythic imagination. So that's just one example of how I might use the subtitles and the chapters within a nonfiction book to help me cultivate a spread. That's a great thing to do after you've read each section. Again, if you wanted to, you could do the same exact thing before you read this section and then come back again and do the spread again after you finish the section and see what has changed, where you've learned, what you've grown throughout the reading of that particular content. So that's also an option as well. But the main thing that I like to do when I'm going through a nonfiction book, I do often highlight a lot in my book. So oftentimes I can go through and look for things that I have highlighted and see if there's something in there that maybe might make a good tarot spread or that might make a good position for a tarot spread. So I'm in particular looking at things that originally caught my interest, because if I noted it enough to highlight it or to mark it with a page flag, then that's something that clearly I was interested in that maybe I might want to dive deeper into. So the other thing that I like to do is use these little page flags here. And I did primarily find stuff in this middle section or the back section, which is the magic of the everyday. And I have kind of page flagged a few things in here that might make a great position in a tarot spread. And it's something in particular that I would like to discover more about. So it's not so much just about, you know, picking things out of a book and laying cards down. These are things that I specifically want to dive deeper into on a personal level. So the first one I've marked here is coming home to ourselves, and that's going to be one of the positions in the spread. Then the next one that I marked is the place of belonging. Now, of course, I've read through this and I'm looking at things within the text as well, and you can definitely dive deeper into that, really grab specific lines out of the text that you might want to use in your particular tarot spread. But for right now, I'm kind of just taking the overall ideas within each of these sections, and that's what I want to use to create my spreads and my positions so that I can dive deeper into those aspects. So the next one that I've marked is kinship and otherness, and then beginning the shift to a slower, simpler life, and the ritual life. So those are the sections that I have in particular marked that I want to dive deeper into. So I'm gonna just lay it over here off to the side, and I'm gonna start building my tarot spread at this point. So of course I would do, my normal shuffling and I would take time to set intention while I'm shuffling. I might also take time to kind of glance through and refamiliarize myself with what is in this section that I'm going to be pulling out for a prompt or for a position in my spread. If I have highlighted, I will definitely be looking for any place that I have in particular highlighted. So as far as how you lay these cards down, it doesn't really matter. You can create any sort of configuration that you want. I generally just tend to lay them in a row. If I'm using Oracle, I'll incorporate that in a way that makes the most sense to where it's falling in the position or in the spread, and also where it fits on my table. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in any one particular order or any one particular shape, although you can certainly do that if you want to. So our first one is coming home to ourselves, being at home in ourselves or within ourselves, and that is kind of the context in which I'm going to create this particular position. So my first position and my first question is, how can I be more at home within myself, within my environment, within where I currently am in my life? That is a really big question for one tarot card, but depending on what card comes up, I can distill that down and figure out what exactly that card is speaking to in my personal life. So let's go ahead and pull a card. And we've got the Ace of Cups. So how I can be more in touch with myself, and being that this is the Ace of Cups for me, cups is the suit of emotion, that might be telling me that I need to be more in touch with my heart space. That is where that coming home is going to be found for me, is getting in touch with what it is that I feel. We have a lot of different characters. This is a really interesting deck to do this with because it doesn't necessarily follow the traditional structure of the tarot. It's a bit more intuitive, and I feel like a deck like this works really well for a particular spread like this because we're not necessarily locked into those ride or die interpretations of the tarot. It allows you a little bit more freedom to kind of look at, what does that make me feel? What do I see when I look at that card? How do I relate that to where that's coming home to myself? So being that it's an Ace of Cups, and what I'm seeing here is a lot of different figures encapsulating this idea of different emotions. So it's kind of the potential of all that emotional space. And it's asking me to get in touch with that, get in touch with those different emotions that I have, be at home within them. They don't have to be my permanent state of being, but I need to accept that they're there and they're a part of life. And that can help me come home to myself. So that's our first position. So I'm going to move along to my next tab, which is a place of belonging. So in this particular one, we're going to be looking at, how can I cultivate more of a feeling of belonging? So we have the Seven of Swords. That's interesting. So where can I cultivate that sense of belonging? And here, because I am kind of reading this a little bit more in the intuitive realm, I'm looking at, I can cultivate a sense of belonging by being realistic with my expectations and knowing that where I am is what matters right now, and not kind of what's going to be or where I'm going to be in the future. That I need to be focusing on the here and now, not maybe this idea of that pie in the sky where I want to be in 10 years, right? I can only feel like I belong if I'm in the moment here and now. So this makes a really interesting little spread because we kind of have this inner realm of belonging to self, and this outer realm of belonging to place. And I really love that about this particular spread and the way that this is developing. Of course, I would be wanting to write down these prompts as I'm going, as well as the cards that I'm pulling. I might also note the book and the page that I am referencing for this particular spread so that I can go back and look at it and dive deeper into it if I'd like to. So in our next section, we have the kinship of otherness. We're going to grab a little crystal and put it right there. In this particular book, the kinship and otherness that they're talking about is not so much with other people, but with other things in the world, right? There's a section on animals and sacred trees and things of that nature, right? So what I'm going to look at here, and the lens that I'm going to take, is how can I feel that connectedness to the world around me? That sense of we are all connected, not just the people and the animals, but the places and the rocks and the trees, and kind of looking at it a little bit through that animist view, where we're kind of looking at how can I feel and honor and embrace that connection that we all share being here on this one planet, in this one space. What I'm going to look at is how can I cultivate a better connection to that, a better understanding of that. And so we have the Judgment card here. So maybe that is about kind of letting go of any preconceived notions that I have and awakening and opening up to the idea that there is more here than what I can just see on the surface, right? Maybe being more open to different ideas or different ways of connecting with things. That's really interesting considering the monthly medicine that we're currently doing, which is connecting with that sense of other and guides and things of that nature, and cultivate that relationship, which I think is really beautiful. So our next prompt is going to be, I need a heavier crystal. The prompt here is, or the inspiration is beginning the shift to a slower, simpler life. So I'm going to be asking, how can I begin this process? Or what's the best way for me to work on beginning this process? And I've got the 5 of Swords, so that's quite interesting. Any sort of a 5 for me is a disruptive energy. We have Swords, which is the suit of the mind, to look at stepping into those different ideas and coming to an understanding of that connectedness of all. And in that 5 of Swords, I'm seeing here that there's gonna be a little bit of a challenge of that for me, right? My mental state is going to push back. You know, some of the things that we are fundamentally taught as human beings, this whole idea that we are separate or other from nature, that's a very Western mindset, as in like humans are the top of the top of the world and everything else exists to serve us. And this is telling me that maybe that's a mindset that I need to work on letting go of so that I can step into this connectedness of inner self, outer self, things beyond what I can currently see, beyond this current understanding. And there's going to be some challenge in that, but that's where that growth is going to come from, is in that challenge. Is it gonna stay? All right. So for our last prompt, it's going to be the ritual life. So I'm pulling from this section here where I'm going to be asking, what do I need to look for in order to kind of cultivate this idea, this energy, this lesson in a more ritualistic sense, to kind of bring that into my life in a very meaningful way. And for me, that's what ritual is. It isn't so much habitual. It is more about doing things with purpose, doing things with intention, not necessarily just being habitual in my actions and in my routines and in my practices, but more about making sure that those things are done with intention. So how can I really work on focusing that? What's a takeaway message to help me incorporate all this in a ritualistic way? And we have to walk the lonesome road. So interesting. And this might be one of those cases where I want to look this particular message up in the guidebook, because this is telling me just an intuitive level that I'm going to have to do it alone. But on the other hand, I'm not alone, because again, I'm connected to everything else. So the universe, in a sense, is supporting me on this journey, even though I may be walking this path alone. So, and I love that, because you can kind of see that here with we have the birds and the butterflies and all of that with this little creature here. Again, I could dip into the guidebook, but it's not really about the message here. We're more looking at the spread and the way that we can use the book to mine out spreads and positions that we can create a deeper understanding and deeper work, deeper layers with the material that we're reading. So that's, I think, quite interesting. I really enjoy using my nonfiction books this way. It allows me to really dive into the topics that I'm looking at, but it also allows me to kind of make more use of my tarot decks. So I thought it would be fun to just share how I take a nonfiction book and I create tarot spreads based upon what I'm reading within the book, and how I kind of use that to help me gain a deeper understanding of how the information or the content relates to me on a personal level and things that I may be going on or working through in my own particular life. So if you do any sort of kind of bibliomancy or tarot and or some combination thereof, I'd love to hear about it. So please feel free to share with me in the comments below. As always, my friends, thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to sharing with you again soon.